So I made this coffee this morning, right? Too late. I realized I forgot to put the filter in the machine. Fun way to start my vacation, right? But it's not that big of a deal as we're on day 2 of this week-long vacation, and today's going to be arm day, which should be a lot of fun. Arm days are always fun. My first workout on my vacation was technically chest, but that was me getting off of work and then going to vacation. My official day off for training was back day, which was yesterday, and that was a lot of fun too. But today we're gonna work arms, and I'm so happy I'm on vacation because I get to wear my Sonic the Hedgehog shirt. As everyone knows, Sonic is goated.
Extremely.
This is an unofficial Sonic the Hedgehog fan page, by the way. So if you love Sonic the Hedgehog, be sure to like and subscribe. But we also love Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which is my current obsession, even though I had to take a little bit of a break from playing that game because it is so emotionally heavy. And if I want to play another epic RPG, I need to tone down things a little bit. And as you saw in my last video, I had a whole explanation as to why I think the legacy of Claire Obscure is highly important, which like I said, I want to do a genuine video review of that. However, I'm taking a little bit of a break from epic RPGs. I started playing Final Fantasy 16 because one thing that Claire Obscure also did was it made me become a fanboy of Ben Starr. He's a voice actor for Claire Obscure, and he did such a phenomenal job that I wanted to play all the games he voiced in, at least as a main character. So right now I was playing through Final Fantasy 16. He voices Clive in that. But that's also a very emotionally heavy game. So I taking a little bit of a break from that, playing a game called Rogue Flight, which is a roguelite inspired by Star Fox. And Star Fox is one of my favorite games ever, Star Fox 64. So I'm playing that right now, going to 100% that, then get back into Final Fantasy 16 because, like I said, I just need a break from epic 60-hour emotionally heavy story RPGs. And gonna play through the precinct, just let my head and heart clean itself out a little bit. But I am very excited to get the platinum in Claire Obscure, as well as get the platinum in Final Fantasy 16, and then get the platinum in First Berserker Kazan, even though I'm not that big of a fan of Souls-like games. But that's neither here nor there. I'm gonna finish this coffee, and then we're going to get ready for the gym. I'll catch you guys in a little bit. Peace for the first time. It's kind of a rainy day, but we'll find something to do. Did you all know it's Christian Girl Autumn? That's right, it's the best time of year where we get to wear our flannels, drink our pumpkin spice lattes, bring out our nice little scented candles, our modest Halloween decor. Halloween is the bonus of Christian Girl Autumn, my friends. Now, keep in mind, Halloween is my favorite time of the year because, one, the horror movie marathons, two, just the nice leaves falling atmosphere that comes with the early times of autumn, as well as just the overall Halloween community is pretty rad. At least that's how it should be, in my opinion, where this time of year we can let this time of year as well as Christmas time, because I know my friend Will, he absolutely adores Christmas, and Christian Girl Autumn is my Christmas time, because if we truly allow Christian Girl Autumn to be as on point this year, this can be the greatest Christian Girl Autumn of all time as far as I'm concerned, because not only am I just getting that feeling, but we got a new Taylor Swift album coming out, folks, and she's releasing it in October. She knows, T Swift knows Christian Girl Autumn, and that's why it's going to be goated. She knows it's the perfect time of year to release her new album and just embrace the season, because It's the most wonderful time of the year. We got Christian Girl Autumn, and then immediately afterwards we have Sisters in Christ Christmas. Now, like I said, my personal favorite time of the year is the autumn time. I like wearing flannel, I like wearing hoodies, I like the overall vibe. But outside of that, if we play our cards right, we can truly make this Christian Girl Autumn goated, my friends. Now, let me finish this pumpkin spice latte. Then I gotta make my pre-workout, and we gotta get to the gym because today is arm day. We're gonna get supersonic swole.
Extremely.
Get that bicep pump, get that tricep pump.
Is the pump.
We'll get the arms huge, and I will see what my plans are for the rest of the day. But anyways, I'll catch you guys at the gym. I might get my hair trimmed a little bit. I don't know yet, but we shall see.
So last video, I talked about nu metal kind of accidentally because I wanted to talk about System of a Down, and then it just went on to an entire tangent about that genre. And today I wanted to follow up on that, but I actually wanted to talk about the band Slipknot. Slipknot is the true definition of nu metal, more so their very first two albums. I'm including Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat on that as their first album. I know a lot of people say it was their demo, but to me, their first album is that one, and then their self-titled is their second. Part of that is because I do have an actual copy of Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat, and it is such a cool little collectible item that I have that I'm very proud to own it, and that is a very, very, very early example of nu metal because it has jazz, it has funk, it has hip-hop elements, and then they would even follow that up in their self-titled with, you know, the more hip-hoppy elements of nu metal. And someone, Finn McKenty, actually described it as death metal hip-hop or something like that, or he said that Slipknot is one of the nu metal bands that actually takes much more inspiration from death metal than they do nu metal, and I think that's actually more reflected in their album Iowa. Iowa is by far, and it's not even close, their heaviest album. You know, you have their first song, the official song, at least, People Equal, you know, crap. I don't want to say that word, but, you know, it's such a heavy, heavy song. And that whole album is definitely more death metal leaning than more traditional, you know, nu metal. And of course, you have their third album called the Subliminal Verses. This album, I think, is actually really good. It's, of course, more stone sour sounding, and they went less on the swearing because they didn't want to just be known as the swearing band. And Before I Forget is still a masterpiece. It's on my gym playlist regularly. Following that with All Hope Is Gone, and that is a great, great album. Truly, I just feel like it's an underrated album overall. Psychosocial, for good reason, is considered one of the best nu metal songs of all time, but I think that whole album is more metal than nu metal, and even Corey Taylor started identifying themselves as metal more so than nu metal, even though there are still moments where hip-hop sneaks in. Slipknot became more metal music than just nu metal, and I think that's where Slipknot deserves a lot of credit. They're a very diverse band because a lot of the members took inspiration from different genres. And I know their most recent album is called The End so far, but honestly, I hope it's not their last album. I would like to do or hear another album from them that sounds more like Iowa, something more aggressive and heavy. But only time will tell.
It doesn't mix that well, but does the job. But anyway, this is actually an old instant coffee jar that I genuinely recycled, because that's how true recycling works. Is you reuse something. I obviously can't do that with everything, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, like I said, this doesn't mix the best.
It doesn't matter.
But it's functional. It does exactly what I need to, and it tastes good, and it's a reasonable price. I do recommend it outside of the, like I said, not mixing all that well.
Some good fucking food.
So for the rest of the day, I'm just gonna relax for a little bit. Like I said, it's vacation time. And outside of that, we shall see what we're gonna do. I wanna go do a little bit of grocery shopping.
Some good fucking food.
Might go to a video store, I'm not sure yet. Like I said, I wanted to get my hair cut, but I'm actually kind of liking how it's looking right now.
Naturally beautiful hair.
Outside of this little strand wanting to do whatever it wants. But we shall see how this day is going to play out. I'm going to chug what is essentially my official breakfast, even though I did add creamer to my coffee earlier. And just rest and recover. So I'll catch you guys in a little bit. Peace. Again for the second time today.
So I actually have a roommate who's a veteran, and he loves Charlie Brown and the Peanuts. So I went to Five Below, and I've been sneakily getting him some of these cool little Charlie Brown Halloween decorations and placing them in his room. Not weird, of course. But there's a grocery store right next there. Got myself a kombucha, and then I actually only wanted 2 of these bad boys, but accidentally grabbed 3, so 1 had to go back on the shelf. Being that it is Christian Girl Autumn, I have to make sure I restock on that coffee, especially since it was on sale. I also have a coworker who does not like the more spicy smell of pine cone, so I grabbed her some of these bad boys to line up her desk. Of course, can't forget more pumpkin spice latte creamer, and this place also had peanut butter on sale for $2. I could not skip that at all. I also need to get a shot of this because it looked like the apocalypse happening in real time. I know they said the rapture was about to happen, but this was actually creepy, but still cool.
And I am home for the evening. Now, what I want to talk about is we're getting closer and closer to the Halloween time. So, what's one thing that actually is a lot of fun about Halloween? It's not just the decorations and things like that, even though I do love decorating for Halloween. We have a skeleton over here that is universal. His name is Hector. He likes dressing up for Halloween, Christmas, July 4th, Easter. He's a very useful roommate. He's our 4th roommate. He's very nice, or technically 5th because there's Jerky. She's what I like to call our walking Halloween decoration that we have to feed and clean up after, and she gets to live here for free, mind you, and she still feels entitled. But outside of the decorating for Halloween, what's something that is fun to do during Halloween time? And that is watching horror movies. Now, horror movies, I think, are one of the most universal genres. I think one genre that can be used a little bit more is actually action during Christmas time, because you have the cool lighting and everything like that. But you get a lot more Christmas horror than Christmas action, unless it's a Shane Black movie. He does a lot of really good horror movies or action movies during Christmas. He did do The Predator, and that took place during Halloween time, and that I actually enjoyed The Predator, but that's neither here nor there. And what are I wanted to really truly think about what are some good horror movies for Halloween time. Now, I think, because like I said, Halloween, or not Halloween, horror can be universal, can be year-round almost. But I think, like I said, that's the changing eeriness of the weather changing that makes horror more effective, because it's that time of year where things start to slowly become darker earlier. The changing of the leaves, all those little things. It's just the eeriness of the acknowledgement of time passing. Now, what I wanted to talk about specifically were horror movies that I feel fit this time of year. And the one I actually want to talk about, I haven't watched it yet because I actually want to save it for Halloween, was Clown in a Cornfield. missed my chance to see this in theaters. I heard great reviews for it, and I really, really feel like crap missing out on it because it looks like a lot of fun. I still haven't watched the trailer yet, but all the... Is that my twin? But anyway, all the reviews I've seen for it were positive, so I really want to check this out. But it came out, I believe, during the summertime, released early summer, and I completely missed seeing it in the cinema. So I ordered the DVD, and the DVD did not come in until September, and I swore it came out earlier. Now, if it would have came out when I thought it came out, I would have watched it already. But since it was so close to October, I'm just saving it until it actually hits October and I do my horror movie a night thing once a day. I watch one horror movie. I try to make it a thing where I'm watching a horror movie I haven't seen yet once a day, and then on Halloween I just have a whole all-day horror movie marathon with my friends and I, whoever wants to come over. And outside of that, though, this is another one I haven't opened yet, but I've heard good things about this too. This isn't even a movie. It's actually a miniseries. It was the revival of Are You Afraid of the Dark? This is the only Are You Afraid of the Dark DVD that I have, and I don't know if the series is streaming anywhere. But Are You Afraid of the Dark? Just a cool, creepy children's horror show. And I think that's the one reason why I think children's horror works more for the Halloween time. Because Halloween, really, in my opinion, should be a little more innocent than sometimes it is. It's a time for kids to go out and have fun and be kids. And I think watching horror movies or horror TV that was more made for kids actually fits the atmosphere of Halloween a little bit more, especially with shows like Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Erie, Louisiana, which I think that's on YouTube. That was basically Twin Peaks for kids, not completely, but you know, just the weird town, things going awry. And that show, if you want an underrated show, it's that one. That is a masterpiece. That is one of my favorite shows of all time, by the way. And also another one, this one's the UK. This is a kid's show, but it's absurdly violent. It's called Grisly Tales for Gruesome Kids. That is an awesome, awesome show. I highly recommend that. Some of the episodes are on YouTube. I don't think all of them are, but I know quite a few of them are on YouTube. And another Halloween tradition I have is listening to horror, not horror podcasts, but horror audio dramas. More specifically British ones, because that accent they have fits the atmosphere so well. But when I'm talking about horror movies specifically, I think there's very specific eras of films that I believe really fit the atmosphere of Halloween time, and that is a lot of British horror. Now, my favorite actor, living or dead, is Vincent Price. I grew up watching his movies a lot, and my parents even got me this Vincent Price box set when I was a kid. Some of these movies are a little more violent than I was probably ready for. Like, more so The Witchfinder General, which ultimately had nothing to do with... which I don't even think was actually a Edgar Allan Poe story. Apparently it's inspired by The Conqueror Worm. I don't know. Here's the thing, I've never actually read that. But the story had nothing to do with a conqueror worm. So that's neither here nor there. It could just be a play on words because, you know, it's about, you know, the Witchfinder General hunting witches. It's very much similar to this other movie called Mark of the Devil, which is another great British horror film. It actually predates the torture genre of horror films. I mean, there was torture horror films for years, but that's the one that kind of started the whole, that subgenre without it officially being called that. You know, there's that movie, there's Wizard of Gore, there's also Bloodsucking Freaks, which is not a vampire movie. It's actually more just a blatant ripoff of Wizard of Gore. Bloodsucking Freaks is actually a guilty pleasure of mine. And I love Wizard of Gore too. But Mark of the Devil, that actually, I didn't pull out that DVD, but that's another one just came to mind. That is a very good atmospheric folk horror film. And like I said, it predates the torture genre of horror films where it's still like, because it's about the witch hunts and things like that. It's similar to The Witchfinder in general, but it's much more graphic and a lot more violent. And The Witchfinder in general, here's the thing. Vincent Price wasn't really known for doing a lot of overly violent horror films. He actually wanted he wanted to bring horror to the younger audiences. So the fact they did The Witchfinder in general as more of that was a more violent work of his, and it was really good. I think the reviews were middling, but I loved it. And that's kind of the thing of like a recurring theme of Vincent Price movies is like, even if they're not the highest rated movies, I always love watching Vincent Price movies, especially during Halloween time. Like I said, he is my favorite actor, living or dead. He's my acting inspiration. Like, I have a series of acting inspirations, and Vincent Price is at number one. Vincent Price, John Goodman, Denzel Washington, Keanu Reeves, Kurt Russell, in no particular order outside of, obviously, Vincent Price. He's the one that I hold in the highest regard. Like I said, favorite actor, living or dead. And one weird horror film that actually is a recurring trend during Halloween time is a movie called The Tingler. And that one, it's about a creature in your spine where when you get scared, you get that tingle down your spine. It's actually a creature that grows and grows and grows until you get so scared that it actually kills you. Spectacular movie. A really fun idea. And that was something that was definitely made more for the theater experience. If you see the movie, you'll know what I mean. But there's obviously also, here's the thing, I have a hard time saying the title, so I have to read it. The Abominable Dr. Phibes. Awesome movie. If you watch it, you can definitely see the inspiration it had for Saw. Because it's about a doctor, Dr. Phibes, getting revenge on the doctors who he believes were responsible for killing his wife. Now, they didn't actually kill his wife, but, the whole thing went wrong. She died, and he wants revenge on them. And he has all these elaborate ways to take them out. And like I said, you watch it, be like, okay, I can see where Saw, whether directly or indirectly, took inspiration from this film. And it is a great, great masterpiece. Here's the thing, Vincent Price, he talks in the movie, but he doesn't actually say words and they come out of his mouth. He has like an audio recorder that says it for him. And so all of his acting actually does come from his face. And like I said, a lot outside of that though, a lot of British horror films are great for this time of year. There's also The Wicker Man, not the one starring Nicolas Cage, the original one. And that one, Christopher Lee said that was his favorite performance. And it is a great one. Obviously, the movie, if you've seen it, doesn't have the happiest ending. But one thing that's actually pretty fun is someone did an audio drama of the sequel they actually wrote but never made. And that was actually really cool. The sequel was actually more of a fantasy adventure than a horror movie. But outside of that, though, The Wicker Man is a classic. It's an all-around masterpiece. It's one of the best of the genre. If you can handle movies that don't have the happiest ending in the world, obviously. And we already discussed Mark of the Devil. Black and white horror films, though, and silent horror films. But I already did a whole thing about silent horror films, so I'm not going to bring those up again. Hexen is great. Watch Hexen. We're talking about the old Universal monster movies. Dracula is one of my favorite movies of all time, starring Bela Lugosi. Frankenstein with Boris Karloff, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, The Wolfman, The Invisible Man. All these films are quintessential Halloween viewing because, like I said, they're still, obviously for their time, they were pretty scary, and now we watch them, we've seen, we are unfortunately kind of desensitized by the real world. But even if we ignore, let's say we take out all the stuff we see on social media every day, we remove all that stuff, and we only talk about just genuine movies. We've seen what horror can do after all this time. But for those eras, those movies were probably terrifying. But now they're kind of a little bit more innocent, but there's still a charm to them. Keep this in mind. I said before that a Halloween should still be lightly innocent for kids. Obviously, adults, we deserve to have fun with it too. It's a great time of year. It's fun to, sometimes dress up with your friends, watch horror films, go out, have a party. Halloween is great for kids and adults, but if we got to remember the innocence of Halloween. And I think that's where old black and white horror films come in. You got The Raven, you got Black Cat, outside of, the big ones. Those Edgar Allan Poe movies, even though they have almost nothing to do with the stories they're based on, are great. There's even a movie called Maniac. No, not that one. It's the movie where, the cat has its eye removed. No one knows whether or not that was the cat's real eye or that was a fake eye that they put inside of a cat. It's either way, it's an effective effect. How's that for a sentence? But that one's more based on the Black Cat, and that honestly one is more accurate than the actual movie called Black Cat. But most of the Edgar Allan Poe movies have nothing to do with the actual stories they're based on, because his stories were only a couple pages long, so that's neither here. How do you truly adapt them into feature films? The most you can do, and they've done this, is just make short films based on his works. But there's the innocence of black and white horror films because it came from a different time period. It doesn't compare to, the hyper violent, hyper, jump scare movies that we have today. Sure, they're not like the most, I guess, exciting movies, but the charm and innocence of those black and white horror films still hold up. That's why I love watching them every year. I can put on Dracula right now and I'd have a blast watching it. Shoot, the more I'm saying this, the more I actually want to have a marathon of these movies. And here's the thing. This is why these movies are great. Most of them are barely over an hour long. So nowadays you get movies that are terrified of being less than 2 hours. And these movies are only an hour. And they're great. Especially, here's the thing with Dracula. It has a Spanish dub. Now, what do I mean by Spanish dub? I don't mean just like someone redubbed it in Spanish. No, they reshot the entire movie with the Spanish-speaking cast, and some people even say it's better. But here's the thing. It is definitely more well shot than the Bela Lugosi one. But the Bela Lugosi one has one thing, and that's Bela Lugosi, and you can't take that away from it, and that's why that's my personal favorite one. 1931's Dracula is in my top 100 movies of all time. Where it lands exactly, I don't remember, but I think it's even in the top 20. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, that's another great one. Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, also great. Abbott and Costello is like was one of my favorite things growing up. And seeing their horror films is so funny to watch them. And because here's the thing, when I was a lot younger, I watched The Lost Boys, and that's what ultimately got me into horror. That's what stapled it. I know before I talked about how Phantom of the Opera was a huge inspiration for me getting into horror, or at least that kind of kicked that into gear. But it really was The Lost Boys that really sent me over the edge, because I remember my dad talking about it casually, and we rented it one day, and I immediately fell in love. Now that's a summer horror movie, but it's another one of those movies you can watch any time of year. And I also equate that as a summer horror film because the first week I had it, I watched it every day during that summer, during my sophomore year of high school. Every single day. Did not miss a beat. I was obsessed, and then the rest of that year, I was just obsessed with vampires. It's why I'm writing my novel that's basically Starship Troopers with vampires, because I grew up just within that year. That year, I saw The Lost Boys, became obsessed with vampires. I read I Am Legend, I read Dracula, I read Camilla, I read The Vampire. And then I've even read Starship Troopers, the book. And my brain just said, I actually read I Am Legend before I read Starship Troopers, and I actually wanted to write my own variation of I Am Legend, and now all the things kind of conglomerated together into one thing. But that, again, I'm getting off topic. I'm here talking about horror films that are great for Halloween time, and black and white ones. One is a movie called The Old Dark House, and here's the thing about this one. There's nothing really paranormal about it. It's just about a house that has something off with it. You know what I mean? There's just something about this house where something's just not right. And they even remade it. The remake doesn't have much to do with it outside of it taking place in Old Dark House. It was made by actually the guy who directed The Tinkler. I'm a huge fan of William Castle. He makes great, charming horror films. Ones that you can be like, those are definitely what I call fun house horror films, where there's a lot of scary things happening, but you're there to have a good time. And there was this movie distribution company called Something Weird Productions. I have a few of their movies. They release a lot of schlocky horror films. A Taste of Blood, Wizard of Gore, 2000 Maniacs, Blood Feast, the original, because they actually remade it. And he made a sequel, and then they also remade Blood Feast. And again, these schlocky, overly violent horror movies that were shot on like some low quality video camera from the 1950s or 60s. I don't remember when this movie came out, but it's on the lowest quality video camera with gore effects that actually weren't that bad. Like this, we're bypassing the innocence part here, mind you, but there still is like that loose innocence because they're so schlocky and they're so low budget that it's kind of charming to watch. That's why I like movies like that. It's because you can tell there was some passion and some heart behind them. And Herschel Gordon Lewis is the director's name. He's considered the original godfather of gore. Would go on to, whether indirectly or directly inspire, movies like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, The Burning, which is actually my favorite slasher movie. Inspiring movies like this is ultimately what makes those movies great. Now, obviously, Mario Bava was another huge inspiration. Bay of Blood is a great horror movie that takes place in a camp. And Mario Bava is another one. Black Sunday is a great, great, eerie horror film that I can recommend to anybody. I think anyone would like that movie. And if you don't like it, maybe it's just not your thing. But man, there's just so many horror films that I'm thinking of just off the top of my head that are great for Halloween time. I know we're not even in the Halloween season yet, not officially. I mean, a lot of people consider they start their Halloween season in September. I like to save it for when it actually hits October. But, with all like the chaos happening now, I just want to talk about something more fun than, because as everyone knows, this, outside of talking about Christianity, things like that, this is like, I don't focus on politics. I don't focus on world events because I want people to have fun when they watch this channel. And that's why I want to talk about horror films. We're getting very close to the Halloween time officially, at least when I start doing it. I don't start, because I want Halloween to be respected. I want the excitement to be respected too. I wait for October 1st, then I officially start getting excited. Keep in mind, I do have a few decorations out right now, but that was just because I was kind of cleaning up. I said, you know what, let's put some of these up in the meantime. But ultimately, that's why I want this to be a fun channel for people. That's why I'm talking about horror movies now, because we're getting into that fun Halloween season, and I want people to appreciate horror, because horror is probably my favorite genre, either that or science fiction. But horror just has such a great place in film, whether it directly or indirectly inspires filmmakers, because they're normally people's first movies when they start making film is horror. Horror isn't just some fun schlocky thing. It's because you can relatively make an affordable horror movie. Almost anyone can. Sometimes they're really cheap, but other times you get some good quality gems in there. I mean, Lake Mungo wasn't the highest budget movie, and I still say to this day it's the scariest movie I've ever seen. And with found footage, it's like one of those things where sometimes you can either get a bang or you get a huge miss. And obviously, I want them to be bangers all the time. And even a movie called Alien Abduction, or the Poughkeepsie tapes, I think that's what it's called. That was shot on such a low budget. It doesn't even have a title card, which actually works for the movie. But it still is creepy overall. Again, that's why horror is such a great genre. You don't need big set pieces like you do with an action film. You don't need things that look like high fancy technology like you do in a science fiction film. You don't need to hopefully find an abandoned castle to shoot your fantasy movie in. With horror, it's such an open genre, only anyone can make one. Of course, if you have a little bit of money, it helps relieve some of the stress of trying to actually make it, genuinely scary. But with horror, in my opinion, less is more. Because I remember I watched this one video about a movie called Sledgehammer, which is someone shot on video horror film. And overall, the movie's not that good. But he did point something out, and it said, because of the low budget and because of the way it's shot, it has this like eerie, nightmare-like atmosphere, and because that actually is how I felt when I first watched that movie. Or even when you watch the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's like watching a movie made by the psychopaths in that movie. Obviously, it's not that gory of a film or anything like that, but with horror, budget is almost irrelevant. I kind of equate horror to comedy, because check this out. One thing that I've been told is that not everyone can be funny. And I think if you know how to be funny, you can also be scary, because they rely on similar timing. And that's why I think Jordan Peele makes such great horror films. Nope is, by the way, my favorite film. I love Jean Jacket. Jean Jacket is such a cool monster. I guess I've heard some people say people saying it's something about a sequel, but I think that's a good one and done movie. But that's neither here nor there. Again, horror is awesome. A lot of people love horror. I know a lot of people don't like horror because they don't like sometimes the nudity, the gore, the violence. Some people just don't like being scared, and that's fine. I meant when I was on that commercial set, the one girl I was talking to, she said she doesn't like horror films. She likes more lighthearted films. And hey, that's fine too, because horror isn't for everybody. But I think horror can be more of an all-encompassing genre, because we all have our different fears. For me, I don't believe in ghosts or anything like that. Obviously, I don't believe in vampires. But one of the scariest movies I've seen, like I said, is like Mungo, which is a movie about the paranormal. Another great horror movie, Green Room. But that's more human horror. And humans are real, my friends. And by the way, Green Room is one of my favorite movies of all time. If you haven't seen Green Room, I highly recommend it. I saw that movie and I became such a fanboy of Jeremy Saulnier that I got all of his movies, loved every single one. Murder Party is a great Halloween time movie. It takes place during Halloween, by the way. And Against the Dark, I think this is what it's called, his Netflix movie. And he had another one I haven't watched yet, but Jeremy Saulnier is a masterful filmmaker, and Green Room I honestly think is a masterpiece. Some people say Blue Ruin, but for me it's always going to be Green Room, because that's just so spectacular. If it wasn't for Green Room, I remember I got all my friends to watch it, and my one friend didn't like it for a little bit, but then he actually grew to love the film. Not as much as I do, because I am a Green Room obsessed dork. Anyway, that's my talk about horror for Halloween. As we get closer to the Halloween time, I might talk about horror for Halloween even more. But for right now, those are just off the top of my head thoughts and recommendations. Anyways, if you have any thoughts or opinions on Halloween for horror, be sure to let me know down below, because I want more Halloween recommendations. I want more horror recommendations, because everyone knows the Halloween series for good reason. Those are fun movies. Halloween 3 is my favorite one, by the way. Controversial opinion, I know. But I think that one's making a comeback with its popularity. But, like I said, leave your thoughts down below on Halloween horror, or just horror in general, or just movies you like to watch during Halloween time. It doesn't even have to be a horror movie. Or just movies you love during the autumn season in general. Shoot, I'm going to be watching some Hallmark Thanksgiving movies when that time comes around. Anyways, I got called tonight. I got to start getting ready for bed. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.